a little bit about DRA. It is a standardized method, to assess students' reading development. It documents their progress over time, and that's why we do it beginning, middle, and end of the year. So it documents over time. It's one-on-one conferencing, one-on-one conversation, one-on-one observation. And it incorporates standardized procedures and forms. So everybody's using the same methods, same procedures, gaining similar outcomes, okay? Now, up on the table is a DRA kit. In that kit, you have several items. One thing you might notice when you receive your kit is that there's an inventory list on the top. These are all the components that you will have. Angie and I have personally gone through each of them and made sure that all of the components are there. If there are any missing components, we put a sticky note on the top, okay? And we tried to fill in any missing books or anything, so forgive us if we missed something, but we did go through each and every one of them, okay? In that kit, you'll receive you'll receive your black line masters, very important for when you start to do your assessments. You'll receive your teacher's guide, which will have what we do today if you need a refresher again, okay? It comes with word analysis and progress monitoring. We're not going to touch on those today. We're just going to really touch on just the process of finding a student's independent or instructional or frustrational level, okay? And those are, is there anybody that needs clarification about those three kinds of levels? You do?
Yeah.
Okay. So independent is a student that is proficient in fluency and comprehension based on a range, okay? We'll talk about the range here in a second when we get into the observation guides, but it's based on a range. Depending on that range, a student is independent, fluently reading, and able to comprehend well. If they are below that range, it might be an instructional level, right? And if it's too hard, that's their frustration level. They might struggle really significantly, and you may have to bump down the level, okay? Does that make sense, Mr. Purvis? Okay, thanks. Any questions about the components of your DRA kit? Okay. Now, things to take into consideration as we go through our DRAs. It is 3 times a year in grades 3 through 5. We only DRA students that are above 40th percentile. So Ms. Valtiera, that will reduce the amount of kids that you will need to DRA test, depending on your MAP scores, okay? Now, if you choose to DRA students that are above 40th percentile, that's teacher preference, right? But typically those are on and above grade level based on MAP, okay? You'll have a 2 to 3 week window to complete your DRAs. At the beginning of the year, it will be, actually, that's a typo, it will be starting next week and go through 1.4, okay? The 13th is the day where the window closes, September 13th, yes. The reason why you're using DRA to get information is so that when you are in your guided reading groups, you can be more intentional about what you're instructing your students with. It's important when you are doing your DRAs to find a location that is quiet so that it allows students to think through their reading, be able to read fluently, making sure that other students know what you're doing so that there's not interruptions, so that you're not losing track of what your students are doing during the DRA process. Any questions on that? Okay. If you have a question and you don't want to share it with the team or it's just individualized, there is our parking lot up there. So if you want to, there's Post-its in the center with pencils. If you want to put that up on the parking lot, I'll be happy to address that later. All right, so the first thing we want to be all on the same page about is our record of oral guidelines. So go ahead and pull this sheet out. Now, we are going to go through each of these. I know there's already symbols done for you, but what I want you to do is we're going to do pencil in hand practice, okay? We're going to go through each one. We're going to talk about whether or not, what the symbol is, and whether or not it counts for an error, okay? Now, I'm going to do the symbols on this sheet up here, and then I will put a +1 if it constitutes as an error. Does that make sense? So you will do the same on your page. So let's do number 1, accurate reading. Typically, you will put a check above a word that has accurate, that the student says correctly, right? Check. So you'll see later how we implement these codings, but just if a student reads the correct word, check. Yes, I'll tell more about that in a second. The next one is substitution. Under the word substitution, I want you to draw a line and write the word above that. Because if a student misses a word and they do another word on it, you just write the word above it that they substituted. And I apologize, I've been trying to call Jesse. I was gonna have this up on the screen so I could do it with you, but my was not working. So the screen part. So that is counted as one error. So out to the side right here, where it says each substitution is counted as one error, put +1. Okay? Because that would be constituted as an error. The repetition, simply a backwards arrow with an R. That does not constitute as an error. When we get to the levels where we're timing them, it will probably count against their fluency, but it's not counted as an error towards their range. Okay? Self-correction. Now, it's going to be similar to the substitution. You're going to draw a line. Typically, they would have already given you a substitution, but you just put SC next to it because they self-corrected. They did the right word. Okay? That is not counted as an error if they self-correct. Omission. Omission, you circle it. So if they are reading along and they miss a word, you just circle that. That does constitute as an error. So out to the side, put +1. So far, the two things that could count against a student are substitution and omission. Insertion, where they add a word. You will use the caret and then write whatever word they add to it. That does count as an error. So go ahead and put a +1 there, because that would count as an error if they added words that weren't there. Okay? Reversals. Reversals kind of look a little weird. So say, here's your word. Here's another word. If they reverse those words, you just put a squiggle through it. If they say, the cat ran, that's the sentence, and they said, the ran cat, that's a reversal, okay? That does count as an error, okay? So put a +1 out to the side. Now this next one, the sounding out, is up to you. If a student is sounding out words, at, you might put lines in between where they segmented or sounded out the words. Now, it's information for me as the teacher, because if I need to go back and practice segmenting and blending, that might be information for me. Now, if the student sounds it out and sounds it out incorrectly, that is where it is caused for an error, okay? If they sound it out and it sounded out correctly, no error. But if they sound out a word and it's wrong, that is constituting an error. So I'm gonna put a +1 up there, but no, it's only for incorrect sounding out, okay? If you wanna make a note. And I'm gonna put lines. At some point, a student is not going to know a word. That's okay. What you want to notice is how the student asks for that help, right? Do they just stop and freeze and don't say anything? Or, like in the video you'll see shortly, they'll say, I don't know that word, can you help me? If you have to give the word to them, you'll just write a T above it, knowing that you prompted that, okay? That, each word that you tell a student is an error, okay? So put a +1. The last one, long pauses, this is again for your information. It might help when you're trying to build fluency. If they're taking long pauses in odd places, you might put a slash there just to make note of that information, okay? Does not constitute as an error, only impacting their fluency, okay? So, any questions on the coding part and what they mean and what constitutes as an error? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major errors that they could have. What are the 5 major errors that they could make? Substitution, omission, insertion, reversals, sounding out if it's sounded out incorrectly. Okay? And we're 6, sorry. 1, 2, 3. What? 5, 6. Sorry, I just counted. You're correct. 6. Good job. You passed. Okay, look down at the bottom. There's some important things for you to note here. Repeated submissions. This is very important. It counts as an error every time. So say they substitute run for ran, and every time throughout the passage they do run for ran every single time, it is an error every single time. There's a philosophical thing about that, about, well, it's maybe a misunderstanding, and, you know, maybe, you know, that's something that they're used to, or maybe it's, how would you explain that?
Like an accent, maybe? Like accent.
Yeah, like it's, so, but just for everybody's knowledge, it's still constituted as an error every single time, okay? Now, as far as names are concerned, it's only the first time that they make a mistake on the name, okay? It says, the substitution of a proper name is counted as an error only the first time. So if they continue to say Mary for Molly 3 more times, how many errors are they going to receive?
1.
1, just 1, that first time, okay? Substitutions involving contractions count as 1 error, okay?
So if they do separate it, it is an error.
Yes. Yes. And this goes back to speech and dialect, okay? Words mispronounced due to the speech or dialect are not counted as an error, okay? So pay attention to that.
Okay.
Now, don't use that as a crutch, right? But be aware of those students, okay? Miscues of numerals and abbreviations are not counted in the total number of miscues, but they can be noted for further instruction. So you'll see that we'll have a student that will watch that will do an abbreviation miscue. And we caught it and we were like, what, do we give it a pointer error? So that's our answer. We would not, okay? All right?
What's a numeral miscue? Is that when they say the number wrong?
I would assume maybe like 39 but 93.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a reversal there. I don't know.
Okay.
Some upper levels have like it written in Roman numerals, and they
Okay.
can't necessarily read those either.
Okay.
So that may be it as well.
That could be another one. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Say that again?
They may say like IV instead of
Ivy. Okay. All right, so take a second while I go to the next slide and just kind of run your eyes over this, because we're gonna put this into play here in a second. So I want you just to kind of put those in your brain for a second, because we're gonna use them. The next sheet that you're gonna need is Allie's wish. So if you look at the top of your sheet, you're gonna find the one that says Allie's Wish. Okay, mine's all filled out, but it is DRA level 12. Okay, we're gonna start at 12 and then we have a 40, okay? So, here, there are several components to your guide. We're gonna go through them and then we're gonna watch a video and we're gonna observe the teacher doing these different components, okay? So, the top part up here, where it's, find the word scores. From there to the first section, reading engagement, this is going to be at the end of your process. So don't pay attention to that right now. We're gonna come back to that after we've gone through this whole process. So that's your summary, if you will. So if you wanna write summary up here, so that way you know when I refer to summary, that's where we're going, up at the top. So it's up at the top, under name, date, write summary or results, okay? The next part, reading engagement. Now, beginning of the year, it might be helpful for you to do this because you're getting to know your students. Middle of the year and end of the year is probably not the best thing to use. I mean, it's not gonna be useful for you unless you have a new student, okay? So the reading engagement, the only time you might need to use that is at the beginning of the year, okay? So that's part one. So on the side, write part one, just so you know we're coming back to that. Or you can do it at, you can do that with the kids at the beginning of the year. Okay, part two, the oral reading fluency. Circle the word fluency. This is kind of, this is where we're gonna use our codes, okay? Notice that there are bold words that the teacher says. This is your introduction and preview. So, you will notice the teacher going through these steps. Now, underline, look at the pictures. Underline, look at the pictures. Ranges 4, DRA levels 4 to 16, you're going to make them do a picture walk, okay? After 16, it's based on the first page that they look at, okay? So that's, you'll see a difference in how the teacher does it at level 12 versus 40. You have a question? Okay. So, down here where you see page 2, this is where the book matches, okay? So this is where your coding will come in as students read. We're gonna do that now, and I'm gonna slow it down. Okay, I'm slowing the video down a little bit because it's gonna take a minute for us to get in the routine, right? And so I'm gonna slow it down. We're gonna just do the best we can. And then we're gonna go over it together and see what we got. Any questions? Okay. So this is a first grader reading Allie's Wish, level 12, okay? And I pause for, give me a second and make sure the sound, I hope it's loud enough. Sorry. This is why I was calling Jesse earlier. Couldn't find him. Sorry. I'm trying all of them just in case. Does anybody have any ideas on this?
External speakers, if you get them with
Yeah, it's Dell device.
Dell device?
Yeah. Oh, you don't have to click that drop down, just Dell device, click, yeah, it's done, so press OK. And it should come out through your speakers if it's working. No?
Okay, so what I'm gonna do,
I do have some, do you want the external speakers I have, or just use the from my computer?
Yep, I have the same, if you want me to grab them.
Oh, you have some?
She has some
Yes.
too.
Oh, she's prepared. Oh, never mind. Let us all be quiet then.
we'll see.
We loved the dog, but she was not
Okay, I'm gonna
her
start.
pet.
Can y'all hear it okay?
Yes.
This is a book called Allie's Wish. You've seen it? Yeah.
I haven't seen it, I just.
You just, you,
Alex.
you could read it? Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, you're right. Now, Riley, this is about a girl named Allie, and she loves pets. She wants a pet for herself so much. Now, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, she helps other people take care of pets. Let's look at that. What does it look like she's doing?
He's brushing the teeth.
Okay. Now, what about here? What's she doing here?
Walking the dog.
How about there?
Feeding her.
Okay. Oh my gosh. What? What's happened? How do you think this is going on? You think so? Is that your prediction? Alright. Did you put your finger on that first word and go ahead and start reading?
Okay, so what has she done so far?
Picture walk.
She's done the picture walk, so on your oral fluency part 2, you'll see that the teacher has done her, prompts, and what's in bold. Now she's going to have Allie, have her read, and I'm gonna slow it down, okay? Because she reads pretty quickly. So I'm just gonna slow it down just a little bit. I'm gonna- Try to get this closer to so many wires. Okay, here we go. Do you have your sheets ready next to you? Okay. What is going on here? Colors so pretty. do you want to read it, do you wanna play it one more time and go through? We'll go line by line, okay? So, let's start with page 2. Allie wished she had a pet. Anything there? Nope. She wanted a pet to play with.
Something
She
else.
said something, she said wait.
Okay, we had the same,
Yeah.
because of the audio, we'll go with that she said wanted, just because we're not sure.
I wasn't sure, I didn't hear much.
We couldn't hear very well because of the background noise, so just for the purposes of our training,
I think we marked this one as an error just to have it here.
oh, we did?
Yes.
We don't know what she said,
But it was wrong.
but it was wrong.
It was
Okay,
wrong.
my apologies. So, go ahead and cross that, that would be a submission. Okay, so you're drawing a line through that, okay? Yeah, so just draw a line through that. We don't know what she said above it, but we would write what she said. So,
It almost
Did she
sounded
say
like
wish?
she said wish. It was kinda.
okay, it's wishy-washy, right?
It was kinda long vowel sound.
Yeah. Okay, so whatever word you think she said, you can write that up there. And to love, no errors there. On Monday, Allie helped Lee take care. Anything there? Of his dog. She loved the dog. But he was not her pet.
She said she.
So what does that look like? A line with she above it. Does she self-correct at all?
No.
So does it constitute as an error?
Yes.
Good job. Do what? We did it? Well, okay. On Wednesday, Allie helped Sam.
No.
Did anybody add any? A pause.
That's about it.
It doesn't affect her error score, but it's something to make
But
sure you.
I had multiple, I had a pause on page 2, I had a pause on page 6. Well, some of them were page turning and some of them were just kind of
I will
stutter
tell
stuff,
you
so-
that this was slowed down.
Okay.
So the pauses that you think are probably really, like, the ones
Aren't
that are.
as long as
s-
they appear to be.
Yes, so
But that one was.
that one
Yeah, that
wasn't.
one I had,
so
that one
long.
I had too, yeah.
I got two X's.
Yes. She loved the bird, but it was not her pet.
Self-corrected love.
Repetition, so if you have your arrow back between loved and the, that shows, oh, excuse me, well, I put my arrow between the word loved and the back to she, because that's where she started to repeat herself. Does that make sense? But she did self-correct love. On Friday, Allie helped Miss May take,
She,
substituted she for Allie, care of her cat. She brushed the cat. Did anybody note anything else? One thing that we noticed was that she blew past that period. In regular speed, she blew past that period. So for me, I needed to make sure that I notated that, because if she's going past periods, maybe she doesn't understand what periods do for a reader, right? We wanted to make sure, in case you didn't catch that, cause it was slowed down, we caught it when she was sped up, okay? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, yeah, we didn't have any symbol here to do that, so what we did is just circle the period, so we know that she skipped.
She just moved past it. Allie wished she had her own pet. No errors there. One day Allie took her dad to visit. T above.
Yeah.
How did she, say that? Very good.
She also repeated two.
Where did she repeat?
Well, that's what I heard. I was listening to it too, and she said two, and then she said it again, like she was like a little
Because she
unsure
was
that's what the word.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
but still.
Do pauses count as errors? So that's something to notate, but yes. Mrs. May, Allie wished, Allie wanted to see.
Oh, the errors.
I feel like one of those teachers that like gave away the answer already. So what was the first one? Miss instead of Mrs., so that was a submission. And then what was the other one?
Wish.
Oh, substitution, thank you. Substitution, not omission. So both of those were substitutions. Mrs. May's cat. Hello, said Mrs. May. Come in and see what I have. My cat had kittens, said Mrs. May. Miss. She said miss again. Does that count as an error again? No, because it's part of a name. But it is something to notate. Allie, would you like a kitten? Anything? Can I, Dad? Allie asked. Reversal and self-correct. Does that count as an error? Why not? Good job. Dad smiled and said, yes, now you can take care of your own pet. Okay, so you've gone through, you've done, where?
She, on page 3, she loved the,
She did. She did.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
too?
On page 6, for can I, the first thing she said was, can I? So wouldn't that be an insertion? Because she said, can I, so she said, can I? And then she inserted, how would that work?
I think she said, I don't know that she.
Can I,
Did she say I can I?
at first, and then she.
I think a lot of it had to do with it being slowed down though, cause that made it really hard for me.
Okay, do you want to listen to it at full speed? And see the difference?
Sure.
Maybe just a portion of it so that you see.
But in that part, the most important thing is to notice the self-correction.
Right,
Because then
so either way,
Either way,
it did.
it's not going to count, but the self-correction is the most important part to notice there.
Well, because it was the same word, it really wouldn't count as an insertion, cause it was.
It was
the
there
I.
already.
Okay.
And Dad, Allie asked, Dad smiled, and
Oh, that was right
then,
before.
yes. Now we asked, Dad smiled, and then she would you like a kitten? Can I, Dad, Allie asked,
Doesn't say it.
Dad smiled, and said, yes. Now you can take care of your own pet.
Okay, so, oh, yes.
So Mr. Purvis, I have a question.
Yes.
Dude.
Here's the bus. Yeah.
I'm-
Well,
Go for it.
We both.
Yeah, we were both.
Love it.
Let's
What's the
talk about
question?
So, at the bottom it says, miscues of numerals and abbreviations are not to be counted, so the whole misses and missing.
That doesn't count at all.
Are we?
It's not one error, it's not.
It's there, and we didn't see
Yes.
the abbreviation part.
Yes, originally we counted it because we didn't see the abbreviation
Oh, okay.
part,
Oh.
but it doesn't.
Not at all. I thought you were saying you counted it
You
the
see,
first
that's why
time,
you
so
didn't
that's.
mark it.
Okay, and that's okay, because I gave you correct instructions before.
It was not perfectionist though.
That's okay. We gave you the right information before, that if it's an abbreviation for, it's not counted.
Oh, no, okay, alright, okay.
Now, if it's an abbreviation and it's Mrs. and they say doctor,
That's different.
That's different,
That's a
right?
little different.
That's,
That's a whole different
I mean,
letter,
cause
that's a whole
that's,
different.
yeah,
that's a substitution.
yeah,
It's an error.
okay,
Yeah.
It's completely different, so.
You're welcome, Mr. Burke.
thank you.
Be bold, it's okay. All right, so let's count up the number of errors we had for here. Okay, so on page 2, how many errors did we have? Two. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5.
On page 3, didn't we have a reversal?
But she self-corrected. Page 5.
Two.
Page 6. Page 7. Okay, so we have 5 errors total. So I want you to come over to page 71, right here. Up at the top, you're gonna see oil reading percent of accuracy. Now, if you have a student that is reading, look at the shaded area, okay? If they have made 9 errors within the first few pages, stop that student. Do not make them continue. There is no point. You need to scaffold down, like you need to go down, okay? That is too hard for them, making too many errors. So please, at 9, stop. So where would we circle for a number of miscues? 5 to 6. So that leads to what percent of accuracy? 96. Okay, 96% accuracy with our fluency. Okay. Any questions up until this point? We have introduced the text, they have done a picture walk, we have read them, we have heard them read, we have counted errors and found their accuracy percentage, okay? Now, this is where the comprehension comes in. So, I'm gonna play the video, mark what you see her doing, okay? Now, if you notice, this is what we did with, Angie and I did this, as we were watching, we checked or underlined parts that she said. Because this is what you will have. So whatever the student says, you just underline or check or however you want to notate that. Now some things to pay attention to in this video. Do not pay attention to how the teacher prompts. This is a bad example of prompting. I'm just telling you right now, okay? A great example of prompting is down here at the bottom. Angie has a really great way of thinking about this if a student needs prompting, you start at the first one. Tell me more. Check it off. Okay, what happened at the beginning? You can start there. Check that off. Okay, what happened before that? What happened after that? These are your promptings. It is important that you tally the number of times you prompt. That will come into play later when we're trying to do the rubric. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, and it's important to be patient and wait. Wait to see if they can tell you more before, because every time that you ask something, that's going to be against them. It's going to take out points. So it's better to stay quiet and wait to see if he's saying something else.
Okay. Also something to pay attention to. How many times a student uses appropriate pronouns versus character names. That will also go against them in the rubric, okay? So that's something else to pay attention to. Any questions on what you're looking for in the next part? You're looking for prompting, but not hers, okay? If she uses any of these questions, you might tally those, okay? But if any other questions, yeah. And pay attention to her answers and how many times she uses the character versus pronouns, okay?
So cute. All right, I want you to close the book. I want you to tell me absolutely every single thing that happened in that story. Start at the very beginning.
She asked for a pet.
Okay.
Then she helped take care of the pet.
Let's start with Monday. What did you do on Monday?
She walked the dog.
Okay. And what?
And on Wednesday,
Yep.
she brushed the cat.
Okay.
Feed the bird.
Oh, nice. Okay. And what?
She brushed the cat.
Okay.
They went to their. They went to Mrs. May's house.
Okay.
And then they
Who went to Mrs. May's? And who else?
and Dad.
Okay. Okay. Then go on.
Then they looked at the kitchen.
Okay.
They got a kitten.
That's right. Anything else you want to add?
Okay.
Okay, great. Now, what part of this story did you?
Okay. Tell me some things that you noticed.
A lot of pronouns.
Okay, lots of pronouns, lots of use of
Unless she was
pronouns.
prompted.
Okay, unless she was prompted, she used a lot of pronouns.
She skipped some things.
Okay, did she have the majority of the story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did.
Was it kind of was it in sequential order for the most part?
Yeah, but
She
the
felt
corrected.
corrected.
She felt corrected once.
So
Okay.
you don't know how well she would have sequenced it without Like prompt, because she
Yeah.
gave her Monday, which might have led
Correct.
to her falling into those other two.
Great,
Yeah.
great catch there. That was
So-
why I was saying that the prompting was not appropriate,
Right.
because it truly, do we know if she knew the sequence of the story? Okay, so, again, stick to sort of the prompting down here, very generic, very general prompting, okay? Now, one thing I want you to notice is that she asked her to close the book, okay? I encourage you to say, close the book. Now, if a student reaches for it, because of us, saying find text evidence, go back to the story, right? That's what we preach, right? Don't tell them to put the book away. If they reach for it, that shows you that they need to, they're remembering to go back to the story and find evidence. Now, it's better if they can do it without it open, right? You want to say, okay, I'm gonna close the book, tell me what you're doing. Don't fight it, right? But
Do we need to, does that have to be taken into account when you're doing the scoring?
If they take the book?
Yeah, that they took the book, well, okay.
because the pictures may not tell them the whole story.
Right.
So even if they use pictures as prompts, it may leave out some things that might be down here in the sentences. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now let's go to to page 72. We're wrapping up. She's gonna go to the reflection piece. Now, one thing I want you to notice, or practice even, maybe, is when up here at the top you have some space, that's your space to script some things that she says, okay? Notice that the teacher will say, what part did you like about the story? Tell me why. So maybe you'll hear the student tell her what her favorite part is. Why do you like that part? And then she'll say, because. Okay? Then, something to note, that if the student in your first initial question makes a connection to self, you don't need to ask, what does this story make you think of? Or what connections do you have? They've already answered that for you. So you don't need to ask that again. So that's why it's important for that first time you kind of script. Now, if they don't make that connection, then ask them, what do you connect to in this story, right? So let's watch her finish up that.
Like the very best.
The kitten part, because these kittens were cute.
They are really cute. What does this story make you think of?
My neighbor's cats.
Okay, tell me more about that. What connections do you have?
My grandpa has a cat.
All right, thank you, Riley. Okay.
Okay, so what did you script for her reflection? Somebody, just one person say it? Anybody? Just kind of give me a thumbs up if you want to tell me what it is. Just so I can hear it. Purvis, go.
The kittens were cute, I believe, was what, the part she liked best?
The kitten part?
Yeah, the kitten
Why?
part, why?
Because they're cute, okay? Did she make a connection in that part? No, in the initial question.
Oh,
No. So what did the teacher do? She prompted her, what does this, what connections, and what was the connection? My neighbor's cat? My grandpa's got a cat. Okay, easy peasy done, right? So now here, this is where you come in. I cannot stress enough, Angie cannot stress enough, how important this page is for you, okay? The rubric tells you specifics. So we're gonna take this part and we're gonna go through it together. Now, don't skip this part. Don't be like, oh, I got enough information just from hearing and marking and cues. Do not skip this part, okay? So, part 1, reading engagement. Go ahead and put an X through that. That's not the biggest bang for our buck right now. It is important information for you as a teacher, but as far as their score and range, we're not gonna worry about that right now. Oral reading fluency. This is based on your observations. So phrasing. Where would you rate this student in phrasing? Raise your hand if you think it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. No, I'm just gonna do it again because of processing time. 2, 3, 4. We rated it a 3. Reads in short phrases most of the time. Now, she doesn't read word by word, you know, like, she doesn't read slow word, like, it's not choppy. She reads with some fluency, so it's not super choppy. She reads some longer, shorter phrases most of the time, okay? So 3, monitoring and self-correction. Self-corrects with no miscues, self-corrects no miscues, so she just blows right through all of her mistakes. Yes, ma'am?
I'm not discounting that or anything, but I took into consideration, this is the beginning of the year and she's a first grader, so that's why I put 4. Cause I thought for a beginning of the year first grader, that's pretty good.
I don't think
And
that it's beginning of the year. This is level 12.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year first, they are around level 6. I don't know, is this beginning of the year?
I don't have the answer
This
for
is
that.
level 12.
Right.
At the beginning of the year first, they are reading around level 6. That's the normal reading
Right,
level for
right.
students. We
Well,
have
that's
some
why I thought she was
more.
reading so well, so that's why I gave her 4 for a first grader, but.
Well, I mean, and I know that sometimes our teacher, it's like, what she gives you is what we should observe, right? And so, whether or not it's the beginning, middle, or end, I think that whatever they give you at that time, we just have to take it for what it is at that point. And yeah, she should be reading, if this is, say this is end of the year first grade, she's below still, because 18 is where she should be at the end of the year.
Right.
So, but we'll talk a little bit more, we can talk about that a little bit more. Monitoring self-corrections, 1. 2. I have a 1 for 2. Anybody else for 2? She self-corrects at least one miscue and neglects to self-correct other miscues. She did.
Oh, sorry.
We have a 2, right? So, is it a 2 or a 3? 3. Okay? Problem solving unknown words. Take a second. Show me what you think on your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 2s. 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 Why is she a 2? She only asked for 1 word.
And she sounded out a bunch of other words.
Yes, so, yes.
Good.
So, now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna count that up. So it's 3 plus 3 plus 2.
Yeah, we need that here skills. The 94%.
Oh, sorry, thank you for reminding me. So, if you flip back to your front, or not your front, page 71, what was her accuracy percentage? 96, so she's a 3 there. Sorry, I missed that. It's skinny, I can't, sometimes can't see it. So, what is her total now?
11.
11, so let's circle her 11. Okay, now, comprehension. This is where it's important for you to tally the events, like, that she got right, or even pay attention to those events, because the difference between a 3 and a 4 is that she could identify and connect 3 events versus 4 events, and then a 2 just identifies and comments briefly about each event. So where do you think she is on that scale?
We didn't look at the preview though, did we, where she did the picture walk? The previewing, because we started right when she was reading. I mean, we kind of heard it sporadically, but I didn't hear the whole picture walk.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you, we identified her as a 4. So if you wanna just go ahead and circle a 4. Now retelling, we did see, so where might you rate her? Includes 1 or 2 events? Did she do more than that? Yes.
Yeah.
Number 2, did she include at least 3 events? Generally in random order, partially retelling?
Yes.
Were they all over the place? She had some sequence. So look at number 3. She includes most of the important events from the beginning, middle, and end generally in sequence. Yes. So 3 is, say that again?
Yes.
Cause I wasn't prompting through it all.
Yeah, that's where that
So yes, prompting does, but for the purposes of this training, we're gonna pretend as if the prompting was correct.
Okay.
Okay? She's a rock star student, she's a 3. I know, the prompting was not good, but I warned you, right? I warned you. Retelling characters and details, this is where that, paying attention to pronouns and characters. Where would you rate her? We had a debate on this, I'm curious what you think.
Closer to a 2. She knew a lot of pronouns, but then she did think of Miss May.
I would say
And
between
Dad?
a 2 and a 3, really. She has part of 3 and she has part of 2.
So we gave her a 3, and we noted that we need to reinforce the use of character names. That's because she used pronouns, but we need to reinforce using the character names. So if you notice right here, I just wrote reinforce use of names, right there. Retelling vocabulary, she uses important language, vocabulary from the text, good understanding of keywords and concepts, and then scaled down. What do you think? If you look back at her retelling in the middle, what words does she use?
She used, instead of care, she used walk. Instead of care, she used feed. She did say brushed.
Does she use the word like kitten?
She
and
said help instead of take care.
pet? But we don't wanna look at what she's saying instead of, we wanna look at what she's saying, what she actually is using.
Went, brush.
Oh, yeah, she said help.
So are those words that are associated with the story and
Yes.
appropriate vocabulary?
Yeah.
Yes, so what would you put her?
I give her 3.
We rated her
Did you?
4. Because she used words, important language from the text, she had a good understanding of how to use those words from the text. She knew,
She used some synonyms.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
retelling teacher support. 1! We did a 2, because some of what she did say were some of the prompts. She did prompt at least 3 or 4 times. I think you, Angie, wrote down some of the prompts that she had.
On her Monday, and you please add more, who did that?
So there were several, 3 or 4 prompts. So she's a 2 on that one. Reflection.
The kittens were cute. My neighbor's cat, grandpa has a cat.
His reflection.
Yeah, so that's
Reflection,
what
there's
she
like
was
a
cute.
student
The reflection was the kitten was cute.
Right, so it's a 2, right?
Kitten was cute. That's a what? Fact or opinion?
Opinion.
Which one has the word opinion in it?
1 and 2.
1 and 2.
1 and 2. So which one would you give her?
A 2.
A 2.
It's still related to
It's
the story.
correct. Yeah. Making connections was, now how do you connect to the story, which is her response was, my neighbor's cat, my grandpa has a cat. So what would that be for her? Does she have a limited understanding or basic understanding?
3, literal.
Yeah, a 3, yeah. I mean, it's not super deep, her neighbor has a cat, right? You know, so let's tally up let's count how many she had and
21.
what do you get? 21, yes. Okay, so let's find your summary. Remember I told you, we're coming back to this top part, you're getting your summary. So, we don't need to do anything with reading engagement. We're not focused on that right now. Oral reading fluency, what was our rubric score for that? 11. So I'm gonna put an 11 there. What was our comprehension score? 21. Now, what can you tell me about this reading level for this student?
Your independent reading level.
Correct. Because it falls in between that range. Now, at Elliott, we use the 1 point difference rule, okay? So let's say she had a 10 in fluency. What would your action be for that?
Keep it as independent because it's within 1 point.
Is that it?
Correct.
Okay.
What if she had a 9?
be instructional.
This would be, you would bump down,
Mhm.
right? So, the one below would be,
Instructional.
that would be, sorry, I just got all
Developmental.
instructional, right?
Instructional, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I just, sorry, anyways.
Well, it's developmental on here.
Yeah, it says
And
developmental.
when you get, I guess on the higher level ones, isn't it instructional?
Where are you looking? I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Page.
on a level 12, it's, goes from independent to developmental.
Oh.
And on 40, it goes from independent to instructional.
Mm-hmm,
So higher levels.
mm-hmm. So, that's kind of your 1 point rule.
1 point.
Within that
on
range.
one thing,
Yes.
it can't be 1 point on everything, every three things,
Correct.
1 point,
Totally.
period, that's it.
Okay,
Correct.
good to know.
Yes, so that might help you decide, do I need to go up, do I need to go down, do I need to stay, right? Now, if you have a student that has 14 and 25, what are you gonna do?
Try a higher level.
Consider it.
Have a try harder level, go up a level?
I mean, I would consider it too, just because maybe, I don't know, it's really a tough call, right? I would.
Yeah.
If you
Right.
have the time, go up maybe.
If we're looking for the independent reading level and you have the time, you should go up.
What are you thinking, Jane, on that one?
I think because it's in the range is 11, 14, and he's in 14, is that at the end of the range.
Mhm.
I will just keep that student at independent in this reading level, but I know that my instruction is going to be really quick and he is going to be up
Okay,
really fast.
okay,
Because he's too close at the end of that range.
gotcha, okay,
So he's a fast learner, he'll be faster.
okay.
Okay, now,
I'm sorry, and I will look at here, because I know that we have some 2s and 3s and 4s. So I will notice what was the lowest, and I will keep working on that, because that is what that student is missing to go to the next reading level.
which brings us to the last page. This is going to help you, as a teacher, to set goals for your students. So, like Ms. Villegas was saying, I may have some students, so if I'm looking at monitoring if I'm looking at fluency, right? And in that monitoring and self-correction, there was in problem-solving unknown words, we scored a 2. I might look at the back page and say, okay, what can I focus on as a goal for that student? Even though they're on independent level, there's still some areas that they need growth in. Guess what? Then you can go to your literacy continuum and then, you know.
Do you have a recommendation? I forget how many DRA recommends checking. I think I usually try to go and do, I've done 5 before, but that seems like a lot.
Well, dependent on your scoring here,
Right.
if you have a lot of 1s and 2s, that's probably not the best. You're probably not gonna get to that.
Right, that
You
means I
know?
need to drop, I'm gonna need to drop down anyway,
Yes.
but, so, that's what I'm saying, I didn't know how,
Cause right now you
the
only have
breadth of
3.
what you want to focus on. Would it be better to have a couple that you're really focusing on than have 5 of them that you're
Yes.
trying?
Yes,
And I will
quantity over quality.
I will say
Absolutely.
1 or 2, like 1 fluency and 1 from comprehension.
Okay.
You have here 2 things that we're telling,
Okay.
and the pronouns, so maybe you can focusing on that.
Okay.
So you leave knowing their DRA level and specific things that you're gonna work on within that DRA level. So when you pull books and plan your guided reading you know what your focus is.
Right.
So you might have them notice those things, or hey, I want you to retell this story, but I really want you to use some of the characters' names. Here's a list of all the characters' names, okay? Any questions? Now, if you would like for a model, Ms. Villegas, I'm just kidding.
Congratulations.
Sorry. She didn't know that was coming. I was gonna have us do another one, but I think going through, I'm gonna share this with you. There is a 45-minute video. I was only gonna share a small portion of it of the student going actually through the process. You're more than welcome to, I can do it with you if you want to. If you need another practice round, there's another video here. I overplanned in case we had some time. Anything else that I need to? At the top, we only, if it was independent, we circled it. If we needed to drop down, we drew an arrow down. If we needed to bump up, we drew an arrow up.
So when we do the monster sheets, when we do the testing, we're looking for their independent reading levels. So
Correct.
when we say on the monster sheets, when you're asking for instructional too, are we just
I'm taking
going
that
up
out.
to the next level, or
I'm
you
taking it out.
taking it out? Okay.
Yeah. Only thing on the monster sheet will be the
'Cause
independent
that,
level.
yeah, that was my confusion last
Yes.
year. Okay.
Yeah, so really focusing on that independent level, but you as a teacher know what their instructional level is, depending on the range. If you've got a kid that's 14 and 25, you know that you're gonna bump up. But if you've got a student that's kind of in the middle of that range, you're gonna stay in that area and build those skills.
Okay.
Or at the very beginning.
Yeah, then you're
10
definitely,
fluency and
Mhm.
19 comprehension.
They're still independent in that area, in this reading level,
Yeah.
but there's still things that they need to
They're
learn.
they're barely.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Any questions?
For students with like learning differences,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say they can, their reading fluency is great, they can read, just for the encyclopedia, anything. So let's say they get a perfect score of 16 on oral reading fluency, but their comprehension is, meaning they go up, how the independent level is 14, they're all the way into 16, which is 2 points higher. And let's say they're 2 points lower, let's say they're at a 17 in comprehension, would that even out? Because
No.
at the end of the day, it's based on comprehension, so you're gonna want that comprehension to
We
be
wanna
right
grow
at
both.
19, period.
Yes.
Okay, or maybe
Add to
18 at least.
You wanna, yeah, you wanna grow both, and so I would keep them at that level and grow that area. I would make goals specific to the comprehension rather than the fluency.
So comprehension at 17 would be a no-go, even though
Right.
the oral reading fluency is a higher. Okay.
Yes. Great question, thank you. Anything else for the good of the group? If not, make sure you signed in. Edgefor was giving me a little hard time today, I think the internet's been kind of a little hit or miss. If you are wanting me to model in your classroom, please stay and I will set up time with you, but other than that, thanks for coming. If you have any questions, let me know.